how do you know
JxmyHighroller. We are witnessing history in the making. Das Video ist jetzt aber schon 6 Tage alt. Ich habe einfach vergessen, auch zu reagieren. Deswegen gehen wir da jetzt rein.
when someone is the most valuable player in the NBA? Is it strictly based off of producing wins for their team? Do you factor in the historic significance of their performances game after game? Is it about being the most versatile and complete player? Or maybe it's a combination of all of these things. There's no exact science behind the elusive NBA MVP award and who we determine who it is. But what happens when a dozen different players are playing like the most valuable player, but only one of them can go home with the award? Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Your favorite mobile game is back and better than ever. Join in on Raid's expansive turn-based RPG and discover millions of champion combinations, master countless tactics as you take on raid bosses, dungeon runs, and PvP matches and explore over a dozen different factions. My favorite faction are the High Elves. These guys helped humans form civilization thousands of years ago, surviving the wrath of the orcs and standing idly by as the Lizardman Empire descended into oblivion.
Stop him! Do nothing to me like that!
But then Suroth was like, hey guys, you want to perform some dark magic and drown this kingdom in a completely unnecessary and frivolous civil war that will cripple us for years to come? Yeah, sure. Why not? Thus, the Dark Elves were created and Suroth lived up to his name. But then the Dark Elves were caught, exiled, and the kingdom survived. So, yeah, if you can look past that, then the High Elves are pretty cool. This month on Raid is going to be huge.
So, ich muss erstmal ganz kurz checken, was hier abgeht. Ach du Scheiße. Chat, guckt euch das mal an. Mit Spoilerwarnung, ne? Also, guck mal, wenn ihr rauf geht, ist Spoilerwarnung. Janni, du bist der beste Mod, auch sogar auf Discord. Das hat Kanye West gepostet. Oh, das ist ja fast genauso schlimm wie das von Montana Black, wo er ein Gewinnspiel draus gemacht hat. Aber der hat halt einfach ein Gewinnspiel draus gemacht.
They just released a brand worth almost 30. An MVP award was voted on by the Prior to 1981, the regular season MVP award was voted on by the players. You would think this method of deciding the most valuable player in the NBA was better than what we have today, with members of the media voting for the MVP. This was far from the case. The vote
ja, weil wenn Spieler für sich selber wählen, dann wählen sie sich entweder selber oder irgendeinen von ihren Teamkollegen. Scheißegal, wie die anderen gespielt haben.
Voting results of some of these seasons was absolute mayhem. Back in 1972, a young Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, by far, the best player in the NBA, averaging 35 points, 17 rebounds, and 6 assists a game while leading the Bucks to 63 wins. And as a result of playing like Jesus in a Bucks jersey, Kareem walked away that season as the league MVP. But that didn't stop players from voting like they didn't know what MVP even stood for. Because that season, there weren't just a few players who received first place MVP votes. There weren't a handful of players. There wasn't 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 or 16 or 17 or 18, but 19 players from 16 different teams who received first place MVP votes. But get this, there were only 17
Wir haben das entschieden, dass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar am Ende MVP wird.
Teams in the NBA at the time, which means nearly every single team in the NBA had a player that received an MVP vote that season. And you're probably thinking, some of these players received votes from their teammates or maybe even voted for themselves, but no. The league prohibited players from voting for anyone on their team or voting for themselves.
Wow.
These voting results were completely authentic and completely unhinged. Now this season, there will more than likely not be 19 players who receive MVP votes. In fact, this season is so loaded with all-time elite talent that there will be multiple players who will have historically great seasons this year, and they won't even get a mention for the MVP. Luka, Giannis, Curry, Tatum, Morant, Embiid, Jokic, SGA, Booker, Mitchell, Durant. All playing at an MVP caliber in what is quickly becoming the greatest statistical season in NBA history.
Statistisch auf jeden Fall. Aber wenn so viele MVP spielen, also auf MVP-Level spielen, dann musst du doch einen geben, der nochmal raussticht. Ja, ist zwar klar, das sind alles gute Stars, aber es gibt ja einen, der nochmal besser ist als alle anderen.
If you combine points, rebounds, and assists, here are the combined statistical totals of every MVP in modern NBA history.
Klar, dass Westbrook da ganz oben.
Sometimes this total is relatively low, like Steve Nash's 2005 MVP, but sometimes it's off the charts, like Russell Westbrook's record-breaking total of 52.7 in 2017. but on average, since 1980, league MVPs had a total of 42 combined points, rebounds, and assists. So if a player can reach this number, 42, it's a solid indicator that they are on a path to becoming the league MVP, or at least a front runner. This season, SGA, Ja Morant, Tatum, Durant, Curry, Embiid, Giannis, and Luka are all averaging totals of more than 42. This is unheard of, and it's going to leave a tough decision for the voters of the coveted award. There are currently 6 players across the league who are averaging over 31 points a game. The last time this many players averaged at least 31 a game was, well, never. In fact, in the last 15 seasons combined, there have been 6 players who averaged at least 31 points per game. Let me say that again. There are as many players averaging at least 31 points per game this season as there were players who averaged over 31 points per game in the last 15 seasons combined. The NBA has never seen anything like this. And yet the numbers get even crazier. Offensive box plus minus is one of the better statistics at quantifying a player's offensive impact. In fact, here are some of the greatest offensive seasons since the league began tracking the stat back in 1974. Here's Steve Nash's 2006 MVP season. Here's Derrick Rose's MVP season in 2011, right next to Giannis's first MVP season. But we're not even close to the best offensive seasons of all time. Here's Magic Johnson's MVP season in 1990. Here's Russell Westbrook's MVP season and Kevin Durant's MVP season. And just above that are the best of the best. James Harden in 2019, LeBron in 2009, Tracy McGrady in 2003, and Steph Curry's unanimous MVP season in 2016. Steph remains the only player to ever surpass the +10 threshold in offensive box plus minus. And this season, he's doing it again. But even better, Steph is currently having, statistically, the best offensive season in modern NBA history. So where does all of this put Steph in the MVP race this season? 10th. The man is 10th on the MVP ladder. Now, one of the main reasons why Steph's offensive impact is at an all-time high is due to his mind-boggling efficiency. At this point, it's become universally agreed upon that Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. But this season, he's taken his shooting and scoring to another level. Because at the moment, Steph has the highest true shooting percentage of any player to ever average at least 30 points per game. Or 29 points per game for that matter. Or 28 points, or 27, or 26, or any point per game average even remotely close to his. To find a player who scored more efficiently than Steph has this season, you have to go all the way down to just 16
Oder muss er zu irgendwelchen Centern gehen, weil die Inside finishen.
Points per game from Jared Allen last season. But Jared's a big man whose shots consist of 3-foot layups. What about perimeter players? Guys who take jump shots? Well, there has never, ever been a single perimeter player who had a season with a true shooting percentage as high as Steph's is this season. Not at 30 points per game, not at 20, not at 10, not even at 5. It has never happened. This season,
Oder, das ist nicht mehr normal.
Steph is shooting at a higher percentage than any perimeter player in the history of the NBA while scoring 32 points per game. The man is 10th on the MVP leaderboard. So, if Steph is 10th, which players could possibly be putting together a better season than him? Well, one of those players is Jason Tatum, who has led the Celtics to one of their best starts in franchise history. Currently, the Celtics have a net rating of 7.7, which is on pace to being the best net rating the organization has had in its entire existence. This season, Jason Tatum is averaging 31, 7, and 5 a game, which is a stat line that is so absurd that prior to this season, there have only been 3 players in NBA history to achieve it. Those players were Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Kevin Durant. The man is putting up all-time GOAT level numbers. He is 3rd on the
Let me solo NBA Steph Curry, Digga.
MVP ladder, because the 2 players ahead of him are on path to completely redefining the standard of an all-time great season. Throughout NBA history, there have only been 3 players to win a league MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Michael Jordan in 1988, Hakeem Olajuwon in 1994, and Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2020. Of all the accomplishments a player can achieve, this might just be the rarest and most impressive. And Giannis might just do it again this season. Because if his record-breaking 2020 MVP campaign wasn't dominant enough, he's somehow replicating those numbers again this season. Giannis is not only averaging 31, 12, and 5 a game, he's doing it while being the best defensive player in the entire NBA. Giannis is playing like a Shaq-Tim Duncan hybrid right now, and it's just become so normal at this point that no one's even talking about it. And somehow, one player is having an even better season than Giannis is. Last season, en route to winning a second MVP, Nikola Jokic shattered just about every advanced metric. Jokic led the league in win shares, box plus minus, value over replacement, and he set a new all-time record for the highest single-season PER in league history. Now, the old record was one that stood for half a century, when Wilt Chamberlain averaged a modest 50 points and 26 rebounds a game, which earned him a PER of 32.08. For 5 decades, even the best players the league has ever seen could not touch this mark. Not LeBron, not Bird or Shaq, not even Michael Jordan. But Jokic managed to not only break Wilt's record, he shattered it. And this season, Luka Doncic is on pace to beating Jokic's record. Wow. At the moment, Luka is averaging 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. So if Jason Tatum's stat line was historic, what does that make Luka's stat line? Well, here's a list of every player in the history of the NBA who has averaged at least 34, 8, and 9 a game.
Niemand.
That's the whole list. That's it. There's nobody else. Luka is on pace to breaking the NBA record for player efficiency while averaging a damn near 34-point triple-double. And that, ladies and gentlemen, might just be what it takes to win an MVP this season. But what about some of these other players who are having awesome seasons? Well, to put into perspective just how insane you have to be playing right now to even crack the MVP leaderboard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging 31 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds a game on 53% shooting while having one of the highest PERs in NBA history. He is 7th on the MVP leaderboard. Kevin Durant is averaging 37 and 5 a game on career high efficiency. Take a wild guess at where he lands on the MVP leaderboard at the moment. Nowhere. Durant isn't even on the MVP ladder right now. One of the greatest players to ever lace up is in the midst of one of the most productive and efficient seasons of his entire career, and the man can't even crack the MVP leaderboard. But both SGA and KD are doing amazing things on losing teams. What about the players who are playing like the
Losing Teams, das war gerade das Wichtige da an dem Satz.
League's most valuable player on winning teams, like Devin Booker? Booker is leading a title-contending team to one of the best records in the NBA, and he's averaging career highs across the board in production and efficiency, putting up 28, 6, and 5 a game. The man was first-team All-NBA last season, and he's playing even better this season. But this season is not like any other, because Devin Booker is 8th on the MVP ladder. Oh, but what about Joel Embiid? The beast in the East just put up one of the greatest regular season performances in NBA history. No, really. Embiid's 59-point bomb against the Jazz last week was the 7th best regular season game in league history. Yeah, that guy is 6th on the MVP ladder. 32, 10, and 5 a game. Literally prime Shaq numbers. And the man hasn't even cracked the top 5. You've never seen this before, and neither have I. The MVP race this season is deeper than it's ever been. What was once considered a historically great season may not even earn a player any MVP votes at all this season. The standard for what it takes to be the most valuable player in the NBA has reached an all-time high, and it's going to take an all-time season to win the coveted award. Hope you all enjoyed, and as always, until next time.
Sehr, sehr gutes Video von Jimmy wieder gewesen. Janni hat gerade gefragt, warum gibt es so viele Goats in der NBA? Ich sag dir ganz ehrlich, ich bin ein bisschen planlos, warum die gerade alle so sehr steil gehen. Vor allem, ich habe so das Gefühl gehabt, nach Kobes Era, dass das ein bisschen abgenommen hat mit vielen Stars in der NBA, mit Rivalries, mit High-Level-Basketball. Wisst ihr, wie ich meine? So, dass das ein bisschen alles abgenommen hat. Aber mittlerweile, das ist ja eigentlich das Beweisvideo dafür, in was für eine Era wir gelandet sind, mit den besten Spielern, die der Basketball wahrscheinlich jemals gesehen hat. Ja, außer Michael Jordan natürlich. Dass sie alle so eine Punkte und so eine Effizienz und so eine Sache auflegen. Ich würde da gerne irgendwie eine Erklärung für finden, aber das Einzige, was mir einfallen würde, wären vielleicht ein bisschen die Regeln, dass die halt noch mehr denen ausgelegt werden, den Stars, aber weiß ich nicht, man hat es ja eigentlich vor 2 Jahren noch bei James Harden gesehen, dass halt die Regeln nicht immer helfen. Ich kann es wirklich nicht erklären, warum die alle gerade so eskalieren, weil, hat er gerade schon gesagt, eine Season, die dir vor 3 Jahren noch sicher den MVP eingebracht hätte, bringt dich heute nicht mal auf die MVP-Liste, im Fall Kevin Durant. Absolut wild. Ich bin froh, dass ich Teil des Ganzen bin. Also, ich einfach angucken kann.